What's up, everyone? Welcome to Comic Chronicles. The latest episode of Creature Commandos just dropped, and folks, there were a ton of twists, the origin of Nina Mazurski, and even a sneak peek of what's coming next in the DCU. Stick around till the end of this video because this episode had a lot of details, and I'm going to break it all down for you right now. Episode 7 of Creature Commandos is here, and it brought many story arcs to a close, but not everything's perfect. Now that the series has wrapped up, besides discussing the details of the last episode, it's time to chat about what worked and what didn't in this animation. So go ahead and hit that like button on the video, subscribe to our channel, and if you're already subscribed, turn on those notifications. I'll be dropping more videos about the characters from Creature Commandos and updates on upcoming comics and other animations hitting soon, and if you're a DC fan, you definitely don't want to miss out, so make sure you're subscribed. Thanks a lot, and let's dive into the video. The episode kicks off by showing the birth of Nina Mazurski and how much she suffered from day one. In the animation, she was born with her lungs outside her body, which meant she had to use a machine that acted like a lung just so she could breathe. This is a huge departure from the character's origin in the comics, where she was a scientist responsible for creating the Creature Commandos before she herself transformed into a monster. I'll be putting together a much more detailed video covering everything about Nina Mazurski, the differences between the animation and the comics, and more. It'll be a comprehensive video that will pop up in the card on your screen, so check it out and learn everything about her. As I was saying, the animation reveals that nothing was easy for Nina since she was a baby. On top of relying on a huge, uncomfortable machine to breathe, she was also rejected by her own mother, who abandoned her and her father to live with her grandmother. Nina's dad was the only one who truly cared for her and loved her as she was. Notice that I said in the comics, Nina was a scientist, but here in the animation, it's her dad who is one. To help her live without a machine, Nina's dad combined her DNA with that of an amphibian, resulting in a mutation. Now she has her current appearance, needing to stay underwater to breathe. So, we've got another character where Gunn took inspiration from the comics and adapted it to create a more relatable connection with the audience. This is something he often does, tweaking characters with science fiction origins and pulling them into something more human, adding dramatic backgrounds that help you connect and understand the character's pain. I'm not saying you should sympathize with and support certain characters' actions, like Dr. Phosphorus who became a villain, but you do get to understand the pain he went through, which gives more life to the character, making him more human and deeply layered. Gunn is really good at this, he develops characters extremely well. Continuing with the episode, the flashbacks jump forward in time, and we soon see a slightly older Nina trying to enroll in school. Because her dad is a well-known scientist, she gets accepted easily, but of course, we all know how it goes, bullying is prevalent in schools. Did her dad really think she wouldn't face bullying? Well, exactly that happens, she's heavily discriminated against at school, which leads her to feel defeated. Nina leaves a note for her dad, runs away from home, and ends up living in the sewers and water reservoirs, catching the attention of some people who spot her, and over 3 years, she becomes something of an urban legend in Star City. Dr. Mazurski is devastated by his daughter's departure, and as soon as he sees her on the local news, he goes out looking for her because the authorities have already been alerted to capture her. Notice how in this news scene, there are 2 mentions of important cities in the DC universe. The first city mentioned is Star City, home of Green Arrow, and the other one is Bloodhaven, which, for those who don't know, is Nightwing City. This had me wondering if we might see hints of Nightwing, or even Green Arrow, in the DCU down the line. Because, just like Batman and Gotham City, they could be operating in their own cities. And it would be so cool to get a quick glimpse of Nightwing in Bloodhaven, right? Nina gets captured, and while her dad is trying to reach her to say she's not a burden but the greatest gift of his life, he gets shot by a police officer and loses his life right in front of her, who can't do anything because she was just arrested. This scene is incredibly shocking, and it's hard not to feel outraged by the officer's actions. I often wonder who was worse, that officer or the one who shot Weasel in episode 4. It's crazy, Nina was arrested just because of how she looked. She's never done anything wrong to anyone and has no battle experience. In fact, the first order she receives to kill someone, she can't do it and easily loses her life to Princess Ilana. The whole arc of Nina is truly heartbreaking, but switching to the other storylines in this final episode reveals some negatives regarding this season finale. Rick Flag Sr. briefly wakes up in the hospital. He manages to alert Waller about Professor McPherson, prompting Waller and John Economist to investigate what's happened. They find Clayface all messed up, spread out in the professor's living room, and quickly send a warning to Pokalistan, informing them they've been duped by Cersei, which means the Ilana's army should inform the Creature Commandos. As for Clayface, I don't think he's dead. Throughout various animations and even in the comics, we've seen him get electrocuted or caught in explosions, and each time, he just got knocked out and remained dazed until he was captured, so the most obvious thing that happened here was that he got knocked out and then captured by Waller, or at least that's what I imagine. It's hard to believe Clayface would just die like that. The problem is, while he was still in that state at the professor's house, there was ample time for Flag to be rescued, and Frankenstein to arrive in Pokalistan, so I feel like the writing was a bit forced here. Speaking of Frankenstein, since the season is over, we can conclude that he was the weakest character in the animation. The character underwent changes from the comics, and here in Creature Commandos, he was reduced to just a creepy stalker. The way he ends the season, getting shot by the bride and collapsing there on the floor, was pretty disappointing. In fact, the post-credits scene of this season shows that he was rescued by that lady we saw in episode 2, who informed him that the bride and Nina were at the Frankenstein mansion. So, in my opinion, Frankenstein ended up being the low point of Creature Commandos. As for the rest of the characters, the Creature Commandos invade Princess Ilana's castle to take her out, and conveniently she decides to take a swim in the pool, even though she knows the castle is under attack. Ilana's guards surround her to keep her safe, but the bride quickly orders Nina to kill the princess using the water because no one would notice her approaching Ilana from underneath. But the worst part of all this is that Nina has never fought anyone. The animation shows that she's simply someone who ran away from home due to all the problems she faced, and then got arrested, so considering we haven't seen any other scenes of her while she was imprisoned, we can easily deduce she's never fought anyone. Remember, even in Belle Reve, she needed the bride's help to escape a fight. So, right in her first attempt to take Ilana's life, the princess fights back and kills Nina underwater, and it's clear Ilana fully intended to end her. You can even see her eyes glistening differently in that moment, and just by looking at her, it's obvious she's not the princess everyone thinks she is. James Gunn even gives a little jab at his former boss in this episode, where the bride says that Ilana is just a Disney princess wanting to destroy the world and that Cersei was right. Well, Nina died, and all of this because Weasel wanted to protect the princess, ultimately leading to their exposure. The bride is in shock seeing her only friend lifeless, and she soon gets a call from Waller, who says it was all a mistake. Interestingly, after this assassination attempt on the princess, the remaining Creature Commandos just hang out in the castle, and the episode gives the impression that the misunderstanding was resolved. There's even a scene where they're sitting down, and Phosphorus, who's in pain because Weasel bit him, watches as Weasel is petted and treated like a hero by the royal guards since he saved the princess. This leads Phosphorus to comment to the bride that it's been 15 years since he's been touched, and folks, this comment sparked quite the discussion online. If it's been 15 years since his transformation and he was imprisoned by Batman, then it stands to reason Batman has been active in Gotham for at least 15 years, which explains why Robin can already be Damian Wayne. This discussion about Batman's age in the DCU has been controversial ever since James Gunn said when announcing the DCU that Superman would be younger and Batman a bit older, already having been active in Gotham for a long time. It's easy to imagine that the DCU's Batman is around 40 years old, and while many people think that's a bit old, it really isn't. In the comics, Bruce is roughly that age, and even in the Arkham series games, he's in a similar age range. Anyway, all this discussion regarding Batman in the DCU is a topic for another video, and I'll definitely cover it here on the channel soon. Back to the episode, the bride goes to Ilana's room and tells her she doesn't trust the princess because when she reviewed the castle's security footage, she noticed Ilana had been with Clayface earlier. Through one of her soldiers disguised as a guard monitoring the Creature Commandos in the US after capturing Cersei, she basically sent Clayface to kill the professor and grab Flag's attention. The princess's plan was to romantically attract Flag, and after they captured Cersei and called Professor McPherson to confirm Cersei's vision, Clayface would take out the professor and impersonate her, so when he was caught, Cersei's vision would be discredited, and this plan only failed because the bride saw the security footage. I really feel like that plan from Ilana was pretty forced. For all those things to go right, everything had to go exactly as planned, or it would have all fallen apart. I got the impression it felt a bit contrived. Do you agree? So the bride says she's going to kill the princess, but not to save the world, rather for vengeance for the death of her only friend. Before Princess Ilana could grab her weapon to defend herself, the bride lands a sick headshot on Ilana and walks away. I saw some people remarking it was strange for the bride to have shot and just left the castle without anyone hearing, but folks, pay attention to the scene. The bride's weapon has a silencer, so there's no way anyone could have heard it. The issue in this ending is something else, it's not that detail. The Creature Commandos return to the US, and upon arrival, Economist congratulates the bride for what she did in Pokalistan, commenting on how the princess made Flag look like a fool, as well as how the bride saved the world and proved Cersei was right. Economist tells her that Waller, despite being tough, appreciates the bride's efforts and has refurbished an abandoned wing of Belle Reve for her and her team. When Economist shows the new wing to the bride, she spots her surviving teammates and other prisoners, like Nosferatu, Khalees, G.I. Robot, who has been brought back in a much more robust form, and King Shark. So, there you have it. Nino left the Suicide Squad and joined the Creature Commandos, plus the bride is now the new leader of the team. The second season of Creature Commandos has already been confirmed, and all signs indicate that these characters at the end will be the new lineup of the team. And that brings us to the end of the first season. In my opinion, this finale wasn't as great as I expected, but it wasn't bad either. The problem is the feeling of several conveniences in the writing in this last episode, and there was also a lack of showing how Pokalistan fared after losing the princess. Even though this could be discussed in the next season or mentioned in another DCU production, it still missed showing the repercussions of this action taken by Waller and her team, since everyone in Pokalistan knows that the Creature Commandos and Amanda Waller were responsible for Princess Ilana's death. Obviously, this is going to lead to conflicts between these nations, and it would have been nice to at least drop that hint in this episode so that things didn't feel left up in the air. Now that the first season has wrapped, we can confidently say it was indeed a good animation, despite the negative points I mentioned. I enjoyed Creature Commandos and think it was a great appetizer for what's ahead in the DCU, kicking off with Superman. The strength of the story lies in the flashbacks of the main characters and how they interact, and while the present-day plot creates a sense that something grand or climactic is coming, it ultimately doesn't deliver that. I conclude this series of detailed reviews of the first season with a score of 8, it's definitely worth a watch. Thanks a lot for being here in this video and for following us through another animated series that we covered in its entirety. Share your thoughts in the comments below. On a scale from 0 to 10, what would you rate Creature Commandos? And hit that button on your screen to subscribe to our channel. The DCU is coming in full swing with Superman this year, and I know you want to stay updated on every detail and news about this new universe. So subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications. To check out all the Easter eggs, curiosities, secrets, and everything related to Creature Commandos, click on that playlist on your screen so you can know everything about this animation. Thanks again, and see you next time.